Hi, welcome to the Quilting Life podcast. We are, first of all, I'm Sherry McConnell from A Quilting Life.
And I'm Chelsea Stratton from Chelsea Stratton Designs.
And this episode is airing on August 30th, 2021. This is episode 36. And this is our fifth Monday episode, so we've always thrown in that extra episode on fifth Mondays. And we've decided, we mentioned this last time, that we would do listener questions on our fifth Mondays.
We love an extra podcast, guys.
So this is good. We have some tips from our listeners and some great questions.
Yeah.
And
it's kind of fun to go back to listener questions too, though.
Yes. Yeah. So keep sending those in.
In November, we'll have another fifth episode.
Okay.
So just a couple months away.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. And if you listened last week, we had a great interview with Kristen Esser. We really appreciate her for being on the podcast. That was a lot of fun. And we are going to have another guest in 2 weeks, right?
Mm-hmm. Next episode.
Yeah. We're actually taping that interview today. So
yeah, we're so excited.
Tell her, or maybe we'll put out some hints on social media before who it is. Just as it leads up to that. Okay.
But you guys will love it. She's so creative and super awesome.
Somebody from Moda. So we'll give you that hint today.
Mom, you're giving too much.
Okay, so Quilt on the Wall is 9-patch square dance, and I'm super excited. I know I've showed this before. It was in American Patchwork and Quilting magazine, but I have the individual standalone patterns ready now in my shop in paper and in PDF. So if you
fun.
I love this quilt. It's a charm pack and 2 honey buns, so it really saves a ton of time on cutting. And some people just don't have access to the magazine, and I always feel bad because there has to be a certain time period that you wait before you can release that pattern. So, but that time is now, so it's in the shop. And then just on the table, I have my Mahalo quilt in our Desert Bloom fabrics. And I've actually been thinking about doing a scrap quilt soon, a new pattern, and using our fabrics. And so I kind of wanted to see how these two played together. And that's really the reason this quilt ended up on the table. So
yeah, that's so funny because that's the first thing I noticed. I was like, oh, so funny she would put a Desert Bloom quilt on the table and a Happy Days quilt on the wall, because when when I started to design the initial drawings for Happy Days, I know we talked about that. We're like, let's go back to that palette, but make it a little bit brighter and a little bit fresher.
Right.
And that's kind of how Happy Days came about. And so it's really cool to kind of see, some colors were omitted from the line,
Right.
But
a lot of them are still in there.
A lot of them are still the same. And so it was really cool for us to kind of go back and say, let's kind of do the same thing, but make it a little bit different. And so I love that you put these two together. Really cool.
Thanks. Yeah.
Really cool.
I don't think I had done that before either. And I just wanted to. So, okay, so as we mentioned, we have listener questions, but the first 1, 2, 3 are actually, we have just some commentary that was really good from some previous things that we discussed.
Yeah.
Some
taking it back.
Yes. So, some people wrote in, and so with some of their thoughts and information, and so I just thought we could read those first and then do the questions. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, I like that.
Okay. So do you want to start, or do you want me to start?
Well, let's have you start, because the one says, hi, Sherry.
Okay. Okay. So she said, hi, Sherry. I have recently found your Quilting Life podcast and have quite enjoyed listening to you and Chelsea chat about your quilts, fabrics, and families. I have been listening to the archive podcasts and heard where your listeners asked where to donate fabric. I have a suggestion that maybe you could pass on to your wide network of listeners, local schools. I am a high school English teacher in Missouri, and just today at our back-to-school meetings, the Family and Consumer Sciences, formerly Home Ec teacher, Mentioned most of the fabric our students get to choose from is donated. Our school has a high percentage of low-income students, so that does make sense, but it had not occurred to me before. If the topic arises again, or if you get more quilters asking about where to send donations when they sort their stash, could you mention the possibility of a local school? I know our students and others like them and would love a variety of fabrics to make the pot holders, aprons, tissue covers, and placemats that they learn to sew in class. Great idea.
I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I never even thought of that, you
Right.
know, like, yeah, why not donate to schools? They
Right.
would really need it,
Right.
you know? And I would encourage, I think it'd be
Great
great
idea.
to encourage students, you know?
Yeah.
I would just check, if you
If they
check with the school, make sure they have a home ec or
program.
whatever type of
Yes.
department that would use that. And
Right.
then, but
Totally.
I know they're
Yeah.
out there. Maybe
Right.
not in every single school, but yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then she finishes by saying, thanks so much to you, Chelsea and Billy, for creating such a delightful podcast and sharing a little of your quilting life and experience with us. You're an inspiration. So we really appreciate that.
Thank you.
So yeah, that was good. We had discussed that topic before, and I don't think we had brought up the option of schools at all.
We didn't at
Yeah,
all. I really,
so-
really love that idea.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next one is thank you for being such a wonderful resource for all things quilting. I especially appreciate your concise, easy to follow how-to videos on YouTube. They are a tremendous resource and I refer to them often. I'm not sure if you've addressed this issue before, but I was wondering if you could discuss the importance of taking the grain of fabric into consideration when cutting out fabric and assembling blocks. How important is this, especially when using scraps? Would also love to hear more about hand sewing wool projects as we head towards the cooler months. Hint, Lisa Bonjean,
Yeah.
which is immediately who I thought of when I started reading that sentence. So
Yeah.
that's hilarious.
Yeah. And that one is from Amy in Ohio.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Literally popped up in my brain. Okay, bring up Lisa Bonjean because she's like, the master of wool projects. So,
Yes.
yeah. But anyways, going back to
Yeah. So she actually has two questions here then. So the first one, when I cut my scraps, I really do try to cut them on the straight of grain.
Yeah.
Just like I would cut out projects for a quilt with the selvages at the top and the fold on the bottom.
yeah.
If I know, sometimes you don't know when you have scraps, which
Yeah.
direction.
That's what I was
it
just going to
is.
say. I don't even think about it when
So-
I'm cutting my scraps. I'm just like, sweet, a scrap. Like,
Right.
let's cut this thing up to the right size. Like,
Yeah. So sometimes I would feel like the majority of my scraps I cut up on the straight of grain. Sometimes it's probably the lengthwise cut just because I don't know if it's a non-directional print.
yeah.
That being said, I hardly ever cut scraps on the bias
Yeah.
because
Yeah. Never.
I just don't. And that's probably a good thing to watch out for because you will have more stretch
Yes.
on those sides if you turn them diagonally. So unless you're fussy cutting and you really want to get a certain orientation, I would try to keep it to the straight of grain or the lengthwise grain.
Okay. So I think that kind of answers our question, like, how important is this? Like,
I think it is. I don't think it matters as much for the straight of grain and the
Yeah.
lengthwise grain, but I think you do want to try to be sure that you're not cutting everything on the bias because
Yeah.
it'll get all out of shape.
yeah, totally.
So, and then hand sewing wool projects. That one, I really I have to say, I got some little mini private lessons from Lisa when I was in Wisconsin. This was back in 2013,
was a while ago.
a long time ago. And I feel like I need a refresher from her.
Yeah.
So I would just really turn you to her. She has been putting some things on YouTube.
Oh,
and,
good.
And she has a book. We can link this book of hers, but it has
Yeah.
all the stitches in it. It's like an encyclopedia, and it
Yeah.
has really great photographs of her stitching that stitch and tips and So yeah, we will link that book. That is a great resource that Lisa did. So.
Yeah, I was going to mention too. I mean, like, yeah, we definitely have to refer to her. That's not something like I'm not working with hand sewing wool projects like at all.
Yeah.
But what I will say is at Quilt Market, I've always been so intrigued by Lisa because there was one time Moda was doing demonstrations and she did like a demonstration thing and she was like working with wool. But when you like go to her booth and talk to her, she's just sitting there like sewing projects, just like working and just like talking to you at the same time. And it's just like so cool to see her work.
Yeah.
And she has so many tiny little pieces that are all these little, and she knows exactly where they go. And yeah, so I mean, I would refer to her. Lisa's like a treat to be around because she's just so talented. And
yeah.
So yeah.
No, and that made me think of too in the conversation with Kristen last week, you know, she mentioned hand stitching and how portable it is. And that is the good thing about wool too. You can take it with you anywhere. So, and you don't have to worry about those edges fraying so much. So I do have a stash of wool and some projects. And
get them out, Mom.
Maybe this winter I'm going to have to get those
Let's get Lisa on the phone.
Yes.
Oh, goodness.
Okay, I will read the next one. It says, Dear Sherry and Chelsea, I have just started to catch up with the podcasts after being away from them for a while. Firstly, I want to let you know how much I enjoy them. I am writing to provide you with my opinion in regards to threads, in particular around the episode where your long armor, I believe, provided you with thinner thread for piecing. Sherry, at that time you said the verdict was out. As a longtime quilter who both pieces her quilts and also does all of the ruler and free motion quilting on those quilts on a domestic machine, the use of thinner thread for accuracy, ease of quilting, and overall look was game-changing for me. If you simply compare a good-sized stack of half-square triangles done with thinner, I often use as small as 80 weight, with the traditional threads you utilize, you will notice how much thicker your stacks are. For me, being able to glide over seams while I free motion or ruler quilt is crucial. Kind regards, Cheryl. So that was really good to hear too.
Yeah.
So I had a big stash of my traditional thread that I have been using, but Marion, who does a lot of our quilting, she just gave me a bag full of that other thread. And I think she gave you some too. Yeah, she gave me
some too, yes.
Yeah, so we both have the supplies now to really try that out. And this was really great to hear this from the perspective of a quilter who is quilting on her domestic machine too, as to the difference.
I appreciated her her thoughts on it and everything.
So thank you,
Cheryl.
Yes.
Okay, so hi, A Quilting Life. Love your patterns and fabrics. In a future podcast, I want to submit the below question. So here we are today, guys. As you are picking out the fabrics and colors to match a pattern, does this process take you a long time of second guessing the choices, or does it now become easier with practice for you? I was wanting to know if it becomes easier with time or with practice. And this is from Sherry Kimmy. Thank you so much. And I have to say both. For me, I would say time and practice. When I really got into quilting, it was totally trial and error for me. And I made a lot of quilts the first year that I started quilting, and they were not perfect. And sometimes the fabric choices, I would change a few things. I would say time and practice are both important in that.
I completely agree. I feel like as a new quilter, you really struggle. You worry about that so much, and you probably should, give yourself some grace and just keep plodding through it, because I don't think there's a quilter out there who won't tell you that there isn't something that they haven't put together that they didn't like.
Yeah.
Even now.
There's sometimes I'm like, oh.
Yeah. In fact, I was putting fabrics together for just a block the other day, and I ended up switching it out. And that's one thing too. Maybe lay things out before you sew them together. And if you don't like it before it's sewn together, you're not going to probably like it when it is sewn together. So change it out then while there is still time.
While there is still hope.
I don't mean to make it sound so desperate, but yeah. And also, I think I've given this advice before, but really small projects with a group of fabrics that you want to do, that making a small project is a good way to experiment with the color selections that you've done. Even if you make a 9-patch block.
Yeah, make a mini or something.
Or a coaster or something, just to get those fabrics together and see if you really do like it.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a great idea. Test blocks, any of that.
Right.
Type of stuff. But yeah, I mean, and just the other day I was like, I want to remake, this quilt or whatever. And I immediately knew like what I wanted to make it with. But that like before, I probably would have like sat forever and like been like, okay, what is my fabric pull today?
Right.
But
definitely gets easier with time and with practice.
Yeah.
So, okay, we have a couple questions. One came in for Chelsea and one came in for me, kind of about our backgrounds, educationally and artistically. So you want to go first?
I will. And I really am excited about these questions because I feel like before we were having like, like the end of the podcast fun questions that we were having.
Yeah.
So these, I mean, are kind of like go along with that, but still stick to, what we talk about. Chelsea, did you attend art school or design school post high school? Great question. No, I did not. I think I always wanted to. I'm just going to like share, give a little summary of my story again, because I think I would have loved to have gone to an art school or a design school. I know Mom knows, like I always wanted like different like art kits or whatever for Christmas and birthdays and stuff. And I was always drawing. But no, I didn't go into an art school. I took some classes online. Lisa Alexander told my mom about some of these. I can't even remember. I'm going to have to look up what it was. And it was
like a one-word name.
Yeah. So I got on and I spent so many hours going through these classes, and it was mainly to learn the Adobe Illustrator program. It was really informative, and I felt like I really learned a lot. But I have to say this, I had a conversation with Kate Spain at my very first quilt market. And I think she kind of knew we had submitted a fabric line.
I remember that conversation. Yeah.
And she said, I just want to give you some advice. And she said, I am still learning things on Illustrator. And she says, the best thing you can do is just play around on the program, put an image in there, start messing around with it. And, that's kind of what I did. I would stay up really late at night, like after my kids would go to sleep, and I would just like mess around with the program. But something that I appreciate is I always loved to draw. And so learning that I could sketch and draw how like I always did, and then be able to find out that I can just move those images into this program. And that was really helpful for me to just, do that. But so yeah, I didn't go to art school, but I did spend a lot of time learning the program and looking up just, different things and tips and tricks. And I've learned a lot over the past several years. And I'm really, really grateful for that Lisa had recommended. And I'm going to find out and I'm going to bring it up in a future podcast because right now I cannot think of it. But no, I didn't go to art school. I think art school would be amazing. So yeah,
don't you think it would
that just wasn't my journey? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah.
Don't you think it would be amazing to go now with the knowledge that you have and do something like that?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, because you're always going to learn something new. And I tell my kids this, like and I think you feel this way too. There's never a wrong time to continue your education, to keep learning new things, to keep building your skills, to keep getting better. there's always new things to learn. So yeah, I think it would be amazing if I could go to an art school or do, something, even an online program, just take like a class, learn different things. So
there are so many things available now that weren't available even just a few years ago. And I think
everything's online.
Yeah, I think it's just going to keep increasing.
Yeah, which is really cool. So
yeah, that was fun to get that question. And then
I love this next question. So funny. So good.
The same thing for me. She asked, Sherry, in college, did you study design or art? You have said you were a math teacher. So you were in the education program, but did you take art or design as electives? And I thought I know exactly which podcast this came from because we shared the story about Billy's math class. And I was actually substitute teaching in that math class, but I wasn't a math teacher. But I'll kind of back up. So in high school, I wanted to be a fashion designer because all I sewed were clothes. And it's so funny because now Chelsea's oldest daughter really is into, she thinks she wants to be a fashion designer too.
100%.
Yeah. So, but my parents were very set on the fact that I should get do a traditional college program. So when I took my ACT, I actually did, and the SATs, everything that I took, I actually did much better in math than I did in English. And so my high school guidance counselor, suggested that I major in a math or science. And I didn't love it. It came pretty easily to me, but it wasn't my passion.
We love math, guys? No.
I don't know. I feel like Sean, he got that.
Yeah, he is really good at math.
He loves the statistical he's an econ person. Yeah. So it did end up in the family, but I decided to major in English because I loved literature. And partway through, I think I started out as a double major. I was going to double major in math and English and teach high school. But then as it got closer to the end, I decided to just focus on English and go the college teaching route and go to grad school for English. But something in my very last semester of my bachelor's degree, I was kind of like I had like 17 and a half credits that semester because I just wanted to be done. And I had this art history class that was just a general requirement I had never taken. And I had this fabulous teacher, and that was my favorite class. Maybe one of my favorite classes in all of college was that art history class. And I remember thinking, I really should have taken this earlier. I wonder if it would have changed anything. But so I've just, but I didn't. I did teach both at UNLV and at College of Southern Nevada for over 10 years before I quit.
Oh my goodness, it's so long.
And I substituted in there for a while. But yeah, that's my background. I didn't ever, other than that art history class, that's my only formal reach into art. But wow.
We'll take it, Mom.
If I were to go back, I would definitely take a lot more art classes. I just love it. We were able to go to the Getty Villa Museum a few weeks ago in Southern California. And while it wasn't art in the traditional form of paintings, it was mostly antiquities from ancient Greek and Roman times, and statues and pottery and jewelry. It was just wonderful to be back in a museum and be inspired by that type of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a little background there.
I do have to say just a couple fun things.
Okay.
So when I was younger, I don't know if you remember this. I would always ask you to draw me something, and you always drew the same thing. Guys, she would draw this dog. And it was a really good dog. And I would then color it. But she did that for me all the time. So guys, like, she's got her dog that she.
Do you know where that dog came from?
Where?
When I was little, my mom bought me a book of how to do these simple drawings. And that dog was one of the drawings in that book. And it showed you, step by step, like this line, and then you add this curve. And then,
my goodness.
I feel like the dog was the only thing I mastered in the whole book.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
You guys.
I remember that dog too. Yeah, I do.
See? You guys, I have backup. But she would draw this dog for me all the time. This is the greatest ever. So you guys, Mom and her dog.
Yeah.
You guys, we're going to have her draw the dog and put it on the podcast.
Yes.
That is awesome.
Oh.
But also another thing, like my mom did, like, you would substitute school while we were all growing up. And I thought that was really cool. So I'm just going to add that because I thought it was really cool that, like, I always thought it's so cool. My mom's going to be the sub today. It's going to be awesome. She gets to take me home from school. Like, I don't have to ride the bus. But yeah, so really cool. I've always admired that you were in education. That's not something I went into. I thought about it, but yeah, super cool. You would always substitute my classes, and that was always fun for me.
I feel like I got to sub for you more than any of the other kids. I think I had Billy a few times at the high school, maybe, but I know I had you quite a bit at the elementary school.
Yeah, because
4th, 5th grade, your teachers, I kind of knew those two teachers, and so they would call me whenever they were going to be out and schedule me in advance for your class. So,
yeah. Well, and by the time, like, myself and my younger brother were in school, like, that's when you could substitute more. Right. Because you had your youngest two back in school.
Right.
So,
yeah.
I think that's kind of why. But yeah, you guys, mom was, like, also, like, totally the room mom all the time. She'd always, like, sign up to, like, do the parties and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
She was great.
Those were the days.
Very involved.
She was.
Educations.
See? Billy knows. Oh, goodness.
Okay, this last question is kind of a fun one, and it doesn't relate to food, but it's still fun. What careers do your husbands have? And I thought that was really a good question.
Yeah, I really love this question because so much of behind the scenes help that everyone doesn't see is our husbands, and they do so much and are great supporters, and it's just really awesome to see. So yeah, they totally have their own careers. Well, I'll let mom explain my dad's. He's retired, but my husband works for a local water district, which is really nice because he's like 5 minutes from home, and he works in the mapping department, which is kind of cool that he's in that now because he now is doing he's like designing almost. He makes maps. And so it's really, really interesting. And he actually just got done with some continued schooling. And I found it actually really interesting because part of his program was in Adobe Illustrator, which I work with. And he had to do a lot of design aspects. And I would be there peeking over his shoulder and being like, oh, well, I know what that tool does, but these instructions for your lab are talking about this tool. That's super interesting to me. So I was always trying to pick things up, and a lot of it I knew, but it was still really cool. So yeah, it's just nice to have him close, and I'm really grateful for the job that he has. So yeah.
Yeah, it's I just thought that was so interesting too, as you've been talking to me while he's been doing these classes.
Yes, it's been a long year, you guys.
He's finally done. So
he's done. He passed everything. We're really happy.
Yeah, that's fun. So my husband actually has kind of he had a few careers actually.
Yeah, he did.
His grandmother had a furniture store for decades. So it opened in the 1940s, and I remember when they had their 50th anniversary. So she worked up until she was I want to say really late 80s.
Yeah.
She worked a long time, and Bill's dad worked in that business with her. And so, of course, all of the children at one time or another worked in some capacity for their grandmother and dad. So my husband knows a lot about quality furniture and moving furniture because just from growing up in that business. But he worked for Clark County, Nevada for many years in different jobs, and then became a firefighter for 25 years. So yeah, in fact, fun story, Chelsea.
Oh, no.
He started rookie school. Chelsea was born on a Friday, and he started rookie school on Monday. So,
was that so difficult?
So, I hardly saw him when you were the first 3 months of your life, because that's when that rookie school was going on. Yeah. So, I should say, he probably hardly saw you those first 3 months. But, so it was a wonderful career. And it's great that he's retired and can help with our businesses. And he does a lot of babysitting too.
He does a lot of babysitting as we speak. He is watching my youngest, who is not in school yet.
Right.
So he is awesome and has always been serving his family and supporting us. So
He does a lot of post office runs too. I noticed when I'm out here.
Yes,
he does. He's
like
the post
the
office
runner.
guy.
He's
the runner.
I know. At first, he wanted me to give him the title of shipping and receiving, and I'm like, well, you're really just a runner, So I don't know if he really liked that, but he's always threatening to quit, and the ladies at the post office are always offering to hire him. So,
my goodness.
Yeah. During the holidays,
so
they're
funny.
like, we just want to hire you.
Gotta give him a raise.
Yeah. So anyway.
Oh, that is so funny. We're grateful for Dad.
Yes. So, Billy, do you have any reviews or?
Well, I did want to mention that I know this isn't the episode that we talked about brick and mortar quilt shops.
Oh yeah.
So there's been an episode in between when we recorded with Kristen and everything.
Right.
But I don't know how much you guys looked at the YouTube comments or if you did it all from that time, but it's overwhelmingly people say they would come and visit the quilt shop if you guys.
Oh,
that makes me so happy.
Shop, so
that's great.
That's so sweet of everyone.
I need to go in and read those comments.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then another person made a comment. This person said that your mom and sister should most definitely consider a retreat center or holding retreats. I would definitely come, and others would find the proximity to Las Vegas an amazing bonus. So, I don't know if that's something you guys have thought of doing without even opening a quilt shop, is still holding a retreat. But I thought that was maybe an interesting comment.
That is a great comment too. Retreats are wonderful.
Yeah.
And I really don't know anyone in this part of the country that has a retreat center.
Yeah.
There are some north of us in Salt Lake City, and I hear of a lot of retreats being held at hotel venues in Southern California or along the coast. But
I know we would love to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, that
It'd be so fun if we had a retreat space.
Yeah, or even just, renting someplace and trying it out.
Yeah.
As things in the world get to a better place.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah. I love that.
I have to add that to our list.
Yeah. So, a lot of people
We're dreaming big, guys.
Yeah, I think a lot of people said they'd come visit. And, like we mentioned in that episode, being so close to Vegas, that's a big tourist destination. So people make their way there. And if they can afford a few hours, they could definitely come out here and check it out. So,
yeah. So. It's definitely an easy place to travel to. Fares are usually cheaper to get to Las Vegas, I feel like. So,
Yeah.
So just thought I would throw that in there just to let you guys know that
Billy's like,
they
hint.
did respond to
positively.
To the call or to the question of would you come visit?
Yeah.
If we built one or if you guys built one.
Yeah. Well, that is great. Well, I think that will wrap up this episode. As we mentioned, we will be back in 2 weeks on September 13th with another guest.
Yay!
And we think you're just really going to enjoy hearing her story.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
We're actually getting ready to call her.
Yeah.
Soon.
I'm so excited.
So I think we just appreciate you being here and for watching and listening. And thanks so much for stopping by.